There are moments in life when our grip tightens, when fear clutches our soul, and we think the tighter we hold on, the more we can control. We believe that if we just push a little harder, fight a little longer, or plan a little more, we can make life fall into place. But what if I told you that true strength doesn't always lie in resistance? That real peace isn't found in control, but in surrender? That maybe, just maybe, letting go is not a sign of weakness, but the ultimate act of courage. Today, I want to speak to every heart that's tired of holding on, to every soul that's aching for clarity, to every mind that's exhausted from trying to understand why life turned out the way it did. Sometimes the answers don't lie in doing more, but in surrendering it all, in choosing to trust God, even when nothing makes sense. Because there is profound peace not in knowing everything, but in trusting the one who does. Let us walk together on this journey. Here are 5 powerful ways that may guide you to find peace in letting go and trusting the divine. Stop wrestling with what you cannot control. There comes a point in life when your hands grow weary not from work, but from holding on too tight to things that were never yours to hold in the first place. You clutch situations as if letting go will shatter you into a million unrecognizable pieces. You grip tightly to relationships that hurt you, to expectations that suffocate you, to outcomes that betray your every effort. And all the while, you think control is your only safety. But it's not safety. It's a silent suffocation. We are taught that strength means holding on, that persistence means not letting go. But what if strength also means knowing when to stop? What if real courage is the quiet decision to release what has become too heavy to carry? Because there is no glory in gripping something that's already drifting away. The tighter you hold, the more it slips through your fingers. The more you resist, the more you suffer. There are storms in life that come uninvited. Some destroy everything in their path. Some whisper softly in the middle of your soul. And in all those storms, there is a common lesson: you are not in control. You never were. And that's not defeat, that's divine design. You are not made to carry the world, only your truth. And your truth is this: peace will never bloom where control reigns. We spend years trying to fix things that aren't broken, trying to repair things that aren't ours to repair. We think if we love harder, try more, speak louder, the outcome will change. But sometimes, no matter how much heart you pour into a situation, it was never meant to thrive. And when you learn to honor that, you stop fighting battles that were never yours to begin with. You can't force a closed door to open. You can't force a person to stay. You can't force the sun to rise before its time, and yet we try. We build our worth around the illusion of control. But control is a fragile illusion, beautiful, tempting, but ultimately empty. The moment you chase control, you lose your peace. And peace is far more precious than certainty. There is something sacred about surrender. Not the kind that gives up, but the kind that lets go. The kind that stands in the middle of chaos and says, even if I don't understand this, I trust that there's meaning in it. That kind of surrender is not passive, it's brave. It's a declaration of faith when nothing around you makes sense. When you stop wrestling, you start receiving. Because the universe cannot give to clenched fists. Miracles don't land on resistance, they land on openness. On hearts that are tired of trying to be everything and are finally ready to just be held, be guided, be loved without needing to control every step of the journey. It's painful, yes, this process of loosening your grip. Because control feels like protection. It feels like if you just try harder, you won't be hurt again. But control is not a shield. It's a wall. And it keeps the pain in, not out. It traps you in a prison where you confuse survival with peace. But you were not made to just survive. You were made to live freely. Imagine a life where you could breathe again, where you could rest without guilt, where you could let life unfold without feeling like you have to plan every second. That life doesn't begin with more effort, it begins with surrender, with trusting that what is meant for you will not miss you. That what leaves your life is not a punishment, but a redirection. Letting go does not mean you failed. It means you're wise enough to know when to stop watering something that refuses to grow. It means you honor your energy. You value your peace. You listen to your inner voice that whispers, there's something better. And that whisper is not naive, it is the most profound wisdom you will ever hear. The mind will resist it. The ego will scream. Because surrender feels like falling. But it is in that fall that you rise. It is in the release that you are raised to higher clarity. You stop living from fear and you start living from trust. You stop asking, what if it all goes wrong? And you start believing, what if it all goes right? You don't have to understand the why to trust the who. You don't need all the answers to take the next step. You don't need certainty to find peace. You just need to believe that whatever is unfolding, no matter how uncertain, no matter how painful, has a purpose far greater than your understanding. And when you start walking in that faith, even the heavy moments feel lighter, even the hard seasons feel holy. Even the unanswered prayers start to feel like a gift. Because you no longer live from the anxiety of what if, but from the confidence of even if. Even if it doesn't go my way, I trust it's going the right way. It takes time. It takes courage. But eventually you realize you're not losing control. You're finally giving it back to where it always belonged. And in that moment, you don't feel powerless. You feel free. Because now, you're no longer a prisoner of your plans. You're a believer in divine timing. And that is where peace begins. Trust the delays, they're not denials. There is a deep ache in waiting, a kind of silence that screams louder than any noise. You pray, you hope, you plan, and still nothing moves, nothing shifts. Life seems to pause when your heart wants to sprint. And it's in these long, quiet seasons that the question echoes the loudest, why not now? You watch others soar while you feel stuck. You see doors swing open for them while yours remain locked. No matter how hard you knock, it feels personal. It feels unfair. But what if it isn't rejection? What if it's redirection? What if what you call delay is simply divine protection? So often, we confuse stillness with punishment. We assume that if things aren't moving, then something must be wrong with us. But that is a lie we tell ourselves out of fear. Because the truth is, timing is everything. And sometimes the only thing standing between you and your blessing is preparation. Delays are not dead ends. They are detours, meant to shape you before you arrive. The longer the delay, the deeper the transformation. Because the destination is not just about the place, it's about the person who's ready to receive it. You are not just waiting for the promise is also waiting for you to be ready. You may not see it now, but something is being cultivated in the dark. Like roots beneath the soil, your strength is growing in silence. Like seeds before spring, your purpose is being nurtured in patience. And though it's invisible to the world, there is a sacred process unfolding, one that requires trust. There's a reason you're not there yet. There's a reason that relationship didn't work. A reason that opportunity passed. A reason that dream hasn't taken flight. It's not because you're forgotten, it's because you're being fortified. Because the higher the calling, the deeper the grounding must be. Waiting is not a punishment, it's a classroom. It's where your faith gets tested, your resilience gets refined, and your character gets carved. It's where you learn to let go of the illusion of control and begin to walk with faith even when the path is unclear. Because sometimes the lesson is not in the arrival but in the becoming. You don't have to understand it all to trust the process. You don't have to have a timeline to believe in divine timing. You don't need to see the whole staircase to take the next step. Because there is wisdom in waiting. Not passive waiting, but purposeful waiting. Waiting that sharpens you, waiting that purifies you. The world will try to rush you. It will say, you're falling behind. It will say, you should be further by now. But your journey is not a race. Your path is not a competition. You are not late. You are being aligned. And alignment always takes time. Trust that every delay is aligning you with something far more beautiful than anything you could have planned. You see, delays often come when you're about to settle for less than you deserve. They come when you're about to compromise your worth for comfort. They come when you're rushing towards something that looks good but isn't good for you. And so the divine pauses you, not to punish, but to protect. And in that pause, you are given a chance to breathe, to reflect, to release what was never meant for you, to rest before the next chapter begins. It is in this pause that your spirit is recharged, your mind is cleared, and your heart is healed, because only a healed heart can fully hold a blessing. Trust this, delay does not mean denial. Closed doors are not insults, they're instructions. They redirect you towards something that fits your soul, not just your desires. The moment you start trusting delays as part of the divine design, your entire perspective shifts. You stop fighting time and you start flowing with it. Yes, the wait is painful. Yes, it's lonely. Yes, it stretches you in ways you never expected. But in that stretching, you are being prepared for something you cannot yet imagine, something bigger, something better, something more aligned with the fullness of who you are meant to be. And when that day finally comes, when the timing aligns and the blessing arrives, you'll realize why you had to wait. You'll see how every delay served a purpose, how every pause was a piece of the puzzle, how every unanswered prayer was a doorway to something greater. And you'll say, with gratitude, thank you for not giving it to me when I asked, but when I was ready. Surrender doesn't mean defeat, it means alignment. We often grow up believing that if we let go, we lose. That surrender is the language of the weak. That strong people fight, resist, and never give up. But the truth is, surrender is not about giving up, it's about giving over. It's about making peace with the fact that not everything is meant to be fought. Some things are meant to be released. You can spend your whole life swimming against the current, exhausting your energy, trying to make things happen your way, in your time, on your terms. But sometimes the current isn't against you, it's guiding you. And when you stop resisting and start flowing, you begin to understand that surrender isn't the end of your journey, it's the beginning of real freedom. Surrender doesn't mean you stop dreaming, it doesn't mean you give up your goals or silence your ambition. Surrender means you trust the process even when you don't understand it. It means you align your desires with a higher wisdom, one that sees beyond what your eyes can see, one that knows what's best for you even when you don't. There is a quiet power in letting go of the need to control every outcome. Because control is often rooted in fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of pain. But surrender is rooted in trust. It says, I may not know what's next, but I trust that I'll be guided. It says, even if this doesn't go my way, I believe it will go the right way. When you surrender, you don't lose your power, you reclaim it. Because now, your power is not tied to circumstances. It's not based on outcomes. It's anchored in peace. And peace is not found in perfection, it is found in presence. It is found in the ability to say, this moment is enough, and so am I. You don't have to force doors to open when you're aligned with purpose. You don't have to beg for love when you're aligned with self-worth. You don't have to chase validation when you're aligned with truth. Because alignment brings flow. And flow brings fulfillment not from striving, but from trusting. Think about how much energy you've spent trying to make things work that were never meant to stay. Think about the anxiety that came from forcing what wasn't natural. Think about the tears you shed when you clung to what was clearly falling apart. Now imagine if you had released it sooner. Imagine if you had surrendered. Surrender is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of deep spiritual maturity. It says, I trust the timing of my life. It says, I trust that what is meant for me will find me. It says, I don't need to chase, I only need to align. And alignment begins the moment you choose peace over pressure. When you surrender, you start to live differently. You stop panicking over the unknown. You stop rushing through seasons. You stop making decisions from desperation. And instead, you start listening more. You start observing. You start waiting with intention, knowing that alignment never rushes because what is meant for you cannot be missed. Some of the most beautiful things in life happen when you stop trying so hard and simply allow. When you allow yourself to feel instead of fix, to breathe instead of chase, to rest instead of hustle. In surrender, you learn that life isn't about controlling the wind. It's about setting your sail in the right direction and letting the wind carry you. Even your struggles, even your losses, even your heartbreaks, when surrendered, become teachers. They show you where your ego tried to lead and where your soul begged to return. They reveal the gap between who you are pretending to be and who you were born to become. And only through surrender can that gap finally be closed. Surrender is not a moment, it's a daily practice. A conscious decision to release fear and embrace faith. A reminder that life is not happening to you, but for you. And the more you surrender, the more you begin to notice the subtle signs, the gentle nudges, the divine whispers guiding your every step. And so, even in the chaos, you begin to feel calm. Even in uncertainty, you begin to feel grounded. Because now, you're not living from force, you're living from flow. Not from ego, but from alignment. Not from resistance, but from surrender. And that changes everything. You stop looking for miracles, you become one. Because a life lived in surrender is a life that radiates peace. A life that walks with grace. A life that no longer chases outcomes, but welcomes whatever comes with open arms. Because you know now, deeply and fully, that what is aligned with your soul can never be taken from you. Your brokenness is not the end, it's the beginning of grace. There are moments in life when everything you thought was solid crumbles beneath your feet. Dreams collapse, relationships shatter, health fades. Hope seems like a memory from a life you no longer recognize. And in that space, in the ashes of everything you once held dear, you sit in silence, wondering if this is the end of your story. But what if the breaking wasn't a full stop but a comma? What if the darkness was not your burial but your planting? What if the pieces of you scattered across pain and confusion were not signs of your failure, but proof of your humanity and the birthplace of your becoming? We fear brokenness because it makes us feel unworthy. We try to hide the cracks, patch the wounds, and wear perfection like armor. But true strength isn't found in the flawless, it's revealed in the fractured. Because only the broken know what it means to rebuild with intention, to rise with deeper wisdom. It is in your lowest moments that grace finds you, not as a hand pointing at your flaws, but as arms wide open saying, even now, especially now, you are still worthy. Grace does not need you to be perfect. Grace only asks that you show up real, raw, and honest. And in that authenticity, healing begins. There is a sacred beauty in being broken. Because when life breaks you, it also opens you. It opens your heart to compassion, your eyes to empathy, your soul to understanding. You begin to see others, not through judgment, but through gentleness, because you know what it's like to hurt in silence and still get up. Your brokenness is not a liability, it's a language that speaks directly to those who are suffering too. You become a living letter of hope. Not because your story is perfect, but because it is real. And in a world obsessed with polished masks, your honesty becomes a lighthouse. We are taught to hide our pain, to smile through tears, to pretend everything is fine. But there is nothing shameful about your scars. They are not signs of weakness, they are reminders that you survived what was meant to destroy you. They are testimonies written on your skin, etched into your heart. In the breaking, you begin to learn what truly matters. You stop chasing applause and start seeking peace. You stop needing to be understood by everyone and start being true to yourself. You realize that being whole doesn't mean being unbroken, it means being true, even with the cracks showing. Sometimes, the things that break you also build you. They stretch you. They strip away what no longer serves you. They bring you face to face with the parts of yourself you forgot existed. And in that confrontation, you find clarity. In that wilderness, you hear the whisper of grace louder than any roar of doubt. You are not broken beyond repair. You are being reassembled. Piece by piece, thought by thought, tear by tear. And every time you choose to believe again, love again, rise again, you become more whole, not less. Because wholeness isn't about perfection, it's about integration. And when you meet others in their brokenness, you don't shrink back, you reach out. Because now you carry light. Now you carry understanding. Now you carry the reminder that broken does not mean useless, it means human. And being human is not a curse, it's a sacred journey. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to pretend you're not hurting. You only need to breathe, to show up with courage even when the pieces are still falling, to know that even the shattered parts of your story hold meaning, and that grace, quiet and steady, is weaving something beautiful out of the wreckage. Let the breaking break you open, not down. Let it teach you how to bend without snapping. Let it show you that resilience isn't about avoiding the fall, but about rising from it with new eyes, new strength, new purpose. Because what tries to bury you can also birth you. Your story doesn't end here. In fact, this might just be the chapter that changes everything. The chapter where you stop pretending and start healing. The chapter where you stop striving and start surrendering. The chapter where grace steps in, not because you earned it, but because you needed it. And grace always shows up where it's needed most. Let God be the author. Stop editing his story for you. We all carry a pen in our hearts, don't we? A silent, invisible pen with which we try to write our lives, line by line, scene by scene, as if we know exactly how the story should unfold. We plan every chapter. We script every character. We try to choreograph every twist and turn because control makes us feel safe. But life was never ours to fully author. There comes a time when the pages don't read like we imagined. The story takes an unexpected turn. The characters change, the timing delays, the outcomes blur, and suddenly we panic. We reach for our pen again. We try to rewrite the ending. We plead, we push, we protest. Because we forget that sometimes what looks like a plot twist is actually the plot itself. The truth is, you weren't born to write the entire story, you were born to live it. And the one who holds the pen sees the chapters you can't. He sees the connections you've yet to make, the healing you don't know you need, the doors you never would have knocked on. His view is eternal. Yours is emotional. You may not understand why a certain door closed, or why a specific person exited your life, or why that dream hasn't yet come to life, but what you call disappointment might just be divine protection. And what you see as a setback might actually be setting the stage for a miracle far beyond your understanding. There is peace in surrendering the pen. Because when you trust the author, you no longer need to control every line. You learn to rest in the unknown. You learn to breathe between the sentences. You learn to wait for the next page with hope instead of fear. Because the author is not random. He is intentional, always. Stop editing your story to match someone else's approval. Stop rewriting your truth to make others comfortable. Stop crossing out your pain because it doesn't look pretty on the page. Every part of your journey matters. Even the pauses, even the mistakes, even the moments you wish you could erase. Especially those, because the messiest chapters often carry the most meaning. The tears you cried in private were not wasted. They were ink in the hands of the one who writes redemption like poetry. And the parts you're trying to hide might be the very pages that give someone else permission to heal. Let go of the need to have it all figured out. You don't have to know how the story ends to trust that it's a good one. You don't have to read the final chapter to believe that the author is writing with love. Because faith is not about understanding the entire plot, it's about trusting the pen holder. It takes humility to admit you don't know what's best for you. It takes strength to say, I let go. It takes courage to live with your hands open and your heart surrendered. But when you do, you begin to see divine fingerprints on every page. You begin to see beauty in the very places you once questioned. Don't rush the story. Don't skip ahead. Some chapters require silence, others require struggle. But every one of them is building you, shaping you, revealing to you the person you're becoming. And you're not just being written about, you're being written into something eternal, something extraordinary. And the truth is, the story you're trying to write may be far smaller than the one being written for you. Sometimes you're asking for a moment, but you're being prepared for a movement. You're reaching for temporary relief, while heaven is preparing lasting transformation. Don't edit out what's meant to evolve you. Let the chapters unfold. Let the characters come and go. Let the mystery deepen. Let the questions sit unanswered for a while. You don't have to force clarity where God is teaching trust. You don't have to draft endings where grace is still writing beginnings. Because this story is not over, not even close. Even when the narrative feels heavy, it is being held. Even when the words dry up, the author does not stop writing. Even when you feel forgotten, your name is still on the page. You are still being carried, still being guided, still being formed by a story that will one day make perfect sense in hindsight. So today, maybe the bravest thing you can do is put the pen down, not in defeat, but in faith. Not because you've given up, but because you finally believe there's someone who sees the whole book. And the author? He is kind. He is wise. And he only writes Masterpiece 7 when they begin with brokenness. In the end, there comes a moment in every life when the noise becomes too loud, the burdens become too heavy, and the questions become too endless. And in that moment, we are faced with a choice and ought between strength and weakness, not between success and failure, but between holding on in fear and letting go in faith. That is the sacred crossroad of surrender. We are taught to fight, to strive, to hustle, to conquer. But no one teaches us how to rest in trust. No one shows us how to lay down the sword and pick up peace. No one reminds us that surrender is not the language of the defeated, it is the anthem of the free. And maybe today, you don't need another plan. Maybe you just need the courage to finally release the grip you've been holding for far too long. Letting go is not giving up. It is giving over your pain, your expectations, your fears, your timeline, your outcomes to the one who sees beyond your today and into your eternity. It is learning to say, even if I don't know how, I trust you do. And that trust, that surrender becomes the place where your soul exhales and peace begins to rise. In this journey, you will learn that trusting God is not a one-time decision, it's a daily invitation, a daily whisper of, I don't have to carry it all, a daily posture of, not my will, but yours, a daily reminder that you are not the writer of your life, you are the reader of his masterpiece, and every chapter matters, even the ones that hurt. You will remember that silence is not absence, that unanswered prayers are not neglect, they are divine edits to a story greater than your imagination. That brokenness is not punishment, it is preparation. That surrender is not the end of strength, it is the beginning of wisdom. When you let go, you make space. Space for healing. Space for divine intervention. Space for peace that no logic can explain. You stop resisting and start receiving. You stop forcing and start flowing. And in that space between your release and his response, you begin to feel something you haven't in a long time. You feel held. So breathe. Breathe, not because the storm has passed, but because you finally trust the one who controls the wind. Rest, not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer trying to control the imperfect. Walk, not because the path is clear, but because you believe the steps are ordered. Let go of what you were never meant to carry. Let go of the pressure to understand every pain. Let go of the urge to control every outcome. Let go of the guilt, the timelines, the opinions, the fear. Let go and trust God. Trust his process, trust his presence, trust his promises. Because when you doubt him, you truly surrender, you don't fall apart. You fall into peace. The kind of peace that calms chaos. The kind that whispers in the dark, you are safe, you are loved, you are not alone. And in that sacred surrender, you don't just survive, you rise. So if your soul is tired, if your heart is aching, if your mind is racing, stop fighting, stop editing, stop fixing, be still, be present, be willing, and let him take the pen. Because the story he's writing, it's not just about your comfort, it's about your calling. And it will be beautiful, not in spite of the pain, but because of what the pain prepared you for. Let go. Trust God and find your peace not in control, but in surrender.